Tondo. Bleed. Mobility. Burst. Kill. As you can see, this Rapier Bleed build can deal massive burst damage, has high mobility, and deals really good damage over time. In this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know about this build, including the gear, the attributes, the perks, the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses, who you should target, who you shouldn't target, how to fight with this build, everything you need to know. I will also talk about secondary weapons. As you can see, I was using the hatchet, but there are other weapons you can use in a beneficial way with the Rapier Bleed as well. As you can see here on the screen, I'm going over all of my equipment so you can see what I am using. This is not best in slot gear, it just has the important perks that are necessary for this build, with the most important perk being bloodletting on your ring. The second most important perk in my opinion for the equipment is omnidirectional evade on your rapier. I also like keenly jagged to stack additional bleeds, but the keenly jagged will have no impact on your burst damage from your skill with the rapier using the flourish and finish. If you're not already familiar with this build in any sort of way, that will make more sense to you here in a minute. Other important perks on your equipment are resilient and other PvP style perks. I prefer to have keen speed on my hatchet. Even though it doesn't transfer with me when I switch back to my rapier mid-fight, it does allow me to get out of some difficult situations, especially social distancing, and it also allows me to catch up to people when I'm using infected throw. You may have also noticed that I had mortal empowerment on my ring. That does not stack when you get a kill directly from ticking bleed damage from the damage over time. However, it does get a stack when you use the flourish and finish. It is not a necessity for this build. It can be something nice to have. However, a better ring for most people may be hardy and bloodletting. The second most important part of this build is you have to have 250 intelligence. The reason is because at 250 intelligence, all of your damage over time spells get a massive boost, and that includes bleeds. Your dexterity attribute points will depend heavily on whether or not you're using hardy on your ring. If you're not using hardy like I am here, you're going to need 150 dexterity. That way it's only 40 stamina to dodge. If you are using hardy, then I would recommend going 100 dexterity and 150 constitution for increased survivability. And I would heavily recommend going that route if you're not going to use the hatchet for your secondary weapon. Remember, this build is more so like a mobile assassin style build. You want to continuously be moving, dodging whenever there's action nearby, and you want to continue to poke at the enemy you're trying to kill until you've built up enough bleed stacks to finish them off. In the background here, you're going to see me going over the weapon mastery for both the rapier and the hatchet. The rapier is very direct on what you need. You're going to need Tondo and you're going to need flourish and finish. As you can see, I have both those trees completely maxed out, and the reason for that is the whole bread and butter of this build. You're going to apply as many Tondos as you can, and then once you've built up 2 to 3 Tondos, you're going to want to use flourish and finish. On the other side, you can use any one of the 3 abilities. I prefer evade because I want omnidirectional evade for the extra boost in damage. Now the way this works is each time you apply a Tondo on an enemy, which is a bleed for 10% weapon damage for 12 seconds, it'll create bleed stacks, with 3 being the total for Tondo. You can then use those bleeding stacks with Flourish and Finish, which is a 2-part attack, Flourish being the unimportant one, Finish being the very important one. Finish will take all of those Tondo bleed stacks and it'll automatically calculate the remaining damage left based on the damage per tick and the time remaining, and it'll deal all that damage in one single hit, up to again 3 stacks total. Now remember bloodletting and the 250 intelligence, those both increase the time of the bleed, which ends up mattering a whole lot when you're dealing with flourish and finish. And then when you factor in omnidirectional evade, a critical hit, an opal gem on your rapier, those will all impact the initial hit of that Tondo, which is what is used to calculate the total damage per tick of that bleed stack. Flourish and Finish also deals 150% of the total damage, so at the end of it all, you can end up dealing over 10,000 damage in the single hit. Now for the hatchet. The whole purpose of the hatchet is to save yourself and to get away. That means you need Defy Death, which is the berserker side of the skill tree. Berserk is also obviously very important because it can get you out of stuns in difficult situations. Also make sure to always keep an eye on your cooldown for your Defy Death. I can't tell you how many times I thought I had it and I died because it was still on cooldown. On the other side, you do not need to replace your block with the throw hatchet ability because ultimately you're not using the hatchet to deal damage because it's very weak. Your attributes do not line up with the hatchet. The whole purpose of it is to get away and for extra mobility. Social distancing is for getting away and extra mobility. Infected throw is the only attack from the hatchet that actually can affect you in a damage sense of things because it affects the healing ability of the enemy. Remember, you also want to have keen speed on your hatchet, so both of these throwing attacks, if they do critical hits, do not automatically switch to the rapier unless you're specifically about to attack with the rapier. If you're running away or running to catch up to an enemy, make sure to keep your hatchet out to utilize the haste from the keen speed ability if you critical hit. Now let's take a look at this build in action. We'll go over some strengths and weaknesses, what it's good against, what it's not good against, the style, how you should play it, as well as some secondary weapon choices. Now in this first clip, you're going to see me target their healer. Anytime you're playing this build, you want to target the healer whenever you can. The reason is because oftentimes healers are a little more full of themselves and don't realize that you're able to deal a lot of damage all in one shot because all they see is bleed ticking down and they know that that's not going to affect them that much. So once you have 2 to 3 Tondo stacks on them, you hit them with the flourish and finish and they are done. Depending on the enemy player, 2 Tondos might be enough, especially if you're fast with dealing the flourish and finish after the 2 Tondo stacks, but oftentimes 3 is the safe bet. Now onto these bruiser builds. Bruiser builds are really the ones that can hit us hard, and especially if the new greatsword, they catch up to us super fast, they do a lot of damage, and they're kind of tough. They're really kind of our weakness, the bruiser builds or the sword and shield medium armor builds. So you really want to stay mobile, hit them, poke at them, pull away, poke at them, pull away. Once you have 3 Tondo stacks on them, ideally, then you come in with a flourish and finish. Now we're being helped right now because we've got a bruiser build with us, which makes it a lot easier, but ultimately we're just going to try to stay alive, stay away from him, poke at him when we can. Right now he's chasing us hard. The great axe makes it really tough. Right here, the berserk is how we get out of that situation. Again, berserk's super useful, save it for the stuns or the roots. And now we've got some distance, which is going to give us a huge... oh, there we go. He got us right back. But the point is, you get some distance, heal yourself, stay away, apply the bleeds with the pokes. And if you get enough, use the flourish and finish. We're going to try a flourish and finish here, but we end up just barely missing because he goes the other way. But we've got so many bleed stacks on him between our keenly jagged and our 3 Tondos that he gets a lot of damage hit to him pretty quickly. So now we're into round 2, and we actually lose this round and the next one, but I just want to show you how easy it is to focus and take out the healer, especially in arena matches, but OPRs as well. We just continue to chase him, apply the Tondos whenever we can, and now he's got 3, wait for the riposte, hit the flourish and finish, and he is done again. But again, the bruisers are our weakness, and our teammates were not able to survive this time, which makes it extremely difficult for us. Great swords and great axes are really useful when chasing us down. For the opposite build would be the bruiser build, the great axe and great sword being the ultimate weakness because they have really good chase abilities and immobilization abilities. The berserk can only be used once before the cooldown, and then we're kind of stuck. So as you can see, we're trying to get away, we're trying to heal up and get a little bit more of a chance. We did miss an opportunity on one of these players. We could have probably killed him with the flourish and finish if we caught it quickly enough, but we weren't, so we died. Hammers also useful against us, but ultimately not the biggest deal breaker for us because we can dodge their stuns. Now round 3 we ended up losing as well. Both my teammates died pretty quick and I wasn't able to stand up 1v3 in an arena. In the open world or OPR with all the trees and the cover, it's a little bit easier to fight 1v2, 1v3, even 1v4 or 5. But in these situations in an arena where it's tight knit and there's only 2 pillars for cover, it's really tough to stand up to them and to survive long enough to win that fight. But you can see here we've got the healer down to a pretty manageable health, and then we're just going to keep applying Tondos, hit the flourish and finish, and he is gone. We were down to 1 teammate here against the bruisers, but luckily they were chasing him long enough for me to take out this second bruiser, and then there was 1 left. It was 2v1, and we were able to apply enough damage to take him out and move on to round 5 in this arena. As you can see here, though, I'm basically just trying to keep my distance, not getting hit, apply the Tondos. Even if I can't hit the flourish and finish, which I do here, but even if I can't hit, those Tondos and bleed stacks are going to add up quick. Now round 5 here is quite the doozy. I end up focusing on the healer almost exclusively, which I end up missing a lot of Tondos, and I end up not hitting him, and occasionally the bruisers when I throw a Tondo at them, I end up missing a lot. However, because I'm focusing so heavily on the healer, he ends up having to run away and take his focus away from healing his teammates, which helps because then my 2 teammates end up taking out one of theirs before they take out one of ours. You'll also notice that as I'm attempting to put Tondo stacks on the healer, I eventually hit with one, but then it takes me a couple more tries before I get the second one on him, which ends up allowing too much time to pass between that first Tondo stack and when I use the Flourish and Finish, which means he survives the finish attack, he's able to get away, heal himself, and then I have to repeat the process. You want to try to avoid that as best as you can. I should have done 3 stacks before going for the Flourish and Finish when trying to kill him. I'm also randomly putting infected throws into the group of the bruisers, my 2 teammates, and their 2 teammates that aren't the healer. That is to try to combat the healing of their healer. Even though I'm not in the fight, I'm just trying to help whenever I can because I'm having a really hard time hitting their healer. Here, I saw an opening, I thought I could hit it, but I was not able to. Back to focus on the healer. There's that first Tondo stack he riposte. I draw that riposte out. Now here's where the time lapse goes between the first and the second Tondo. I finally get it there, but as you can see, too much time had passed, didn't kill him, and he was able to heal and get away. However, that did take his focus off of his teammate, which does help. Every time I can get that healer stop focusing on his teammates, my teammates get to focus on killing him. So I eventually get in here. I throw a cannon out because why not? That's my only hard gem at this time. There we go. He blocked it with the rapier. How many times do you see a rapier block a Flourish and Finish? Oh my goodness. However, their bruiser comes in, tries to hit me down. I'm able to get out. This is where I believe I am able to finally get the finishing kill. Need to apply one more Tondo though before I can go in. He dodged out of it again. Remember, I also have Keenly Jagged that doesn't matter for Flourish and Finish, but it does deal ticking damage, so I try to use that whenever I can. Finally killed him there. Just to note, do not have Keenly Jagged on your secondary weapon because those cooldowns do affect each other. If you have Keenly Jagged on both weapons, they become irrelevant to each other. You can only use one, not both. Now let's take a look at another clip. This is an OPR, and I'm using this spear, so we're going to see a different secondary weapon. Now, the spear is nice because it does have some stuns. It's got a knockdown with a sweep. But it ultimately does not deal any good damage because you only have 150 dexterity, or 100 if you're using Hardy, and you don't have enough damage with the spear. You're not using its full capabilities. The rapier is really where it's at. That's what we're going to focus on. I get the kill there. But as you'll see in another clip here, the spear just ultimately does not deal enough damage. You want to have a weapon that deals damage or a weapon to get away. The only weapon to really help you get away is the hatchet. So if you're going to use a damage secondary weapon, you're going to want to use either the ice gauntlet or the musket. You can also use the fire staff, but I've been told fire staff has a lot of nerfs, doesn't have good mobility or stuns, so therefore it's not a great weapon to use with this build. However, I haven't tested it myself. You're welcome to try it. Try it out. If it's comfortable, use it. For the musket, I don't personally like it because I've just never really personally liked the musket. However, the musket will deal the most damage because it does scale with dexterity and intelligence, so you'll get a lot of damage from the musket if you pair it with the rapier. My personal favorite, aside from the hatchet, if I'm not using the hatchet, is the ice gauntlet. I love using the ice gauntlet to pair with the rapier because it's got the root from the ice shower. It has a nice mobility / defensive skill with the healing tomb. It's not really mobility, but it's defensive because of the healing tomb. And it also has the pylon, which will help you in fights because it'll continuously slow your opponent and give you another way of attacking. And last but not least, it adds a little bit more range to your abilities, and since it does heavy damage with a 250 intelligence, it's a nice little range attack that can do 1,000 to 1.5k damage per hit. And now before I show you a clip using the ice gauntlet, let's go ahead and finish off this healer. As you can see, I'm having a heck of a time using the spear with the rapier bleed against this healer. The spear doesn't really give any extra mobility, it's really just the stuns, and since this guy seems fairly good at his own dodges, it's giving me a heck of a time. But I eventually get in, eventually finish him off. Because of the massive damage from the Rapier Bleed. So in this next clip, you're going to see the Ice Gauntlet paired with the Rapier Bleed. As you can tell, you can be a lot more comfortable with the enemy player. You can be a lot more pushy, a lot closer. It's not completely a poke, pull back, and attack, poke. You know, you're not poke, run, poke, run. You can actually come in. You can use your tomb when you need to escape. You can use the Ice Shower to root them a little bit. You know, you can use the pylon for the continuous damage and the slows, because every time that pylon hits them, you're going to get a little slow effect on them, which gives you an easier time with your Tondo and your rapier overall. Now, also with this build, I have Hardy on my ring with Bloodletting instead of the Mortal Empowerment. That is extremely useful because now I don't need to have 150 dexterity. I can have 100 dexterity and I can have 150 constitution, which gives me a lot more survivability. Now, one more thing I really want to talk about, guys, and we really need to talk about this really well. We need to focus on it. This build is not a plug-and-play build. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you go and get all the perks, the attributes, the equipment, the weapons, everything you need to make this build work and function, you're not going to instantly be good at it. You're gonna have to practice, guys. I promise. If you practice, you will get good at it, and you're gonna be like, "Whoa! I can't believe I took that guy out like so easily, right? Or so much damage all at once. This is really cool. I love this build." But you need to put in the practice. You're gonna have to practice the build. If you get good at this build with the hatchet, but you haven't used the ice gauntlet yet, and I recommend using the hatchet first, because the more mobility, the more survivability with that hatchet and the running ability is much more important. If you're gonna get good at it with the hatchet first, and then you start trying to use the ice gauntlet, it's not gonna feel good right away. It's really not. So you're gonna have to get used to that, guys. You're gonna have to get used to using these abilities and used to how to play it correctly, because it's not like other builds. It's not a build where you only want to stay ranged and you shoot them. It's not like a build where you want to stay close up all the time, whacking with your great axe or whatever it is. It's not a build where you're always chasing or always running. You're doing both. You're going to have to go in, Tondo, run. You're going to have to go in, Ice Shower, Tondo, flourish, finish, run. You're going to have to run, hit back with the Tondo, and run again. It's constant mobility, constant moving, and it takes a lot of practice. But once you get good at it, it is a lot of fun to play with. And it's really good too. Now I want to give you one more super important tip for this build, but before I do that, make sure you scroll down a little bit and hit that like button. It'll really help me out. It lets YouTube know that this is a good video, and it lets YouTube know that they should share this video and share my channel more. And seriously, it'll really help me. It'll take you 2 seconds to hit that like button. Alright, did you hit it? Thank you very much. You are amazing. Also, if you want to see more content like this, more New World content, be sure you hit that subscribe button and even hit the bell if you want to be notified the second I upload a new video. But if you don't like notifications, whatever, I get it. I don't hit notifications. Just subscribe so you know whenever I do post a new video, and you can see it in one of the first few days, because honestly, I'm going to try to post more New World content, more builds, more action videos, more just general PvP videos, and I'm sure you're going to like it. Also, leave me a comment down below. Are there any builds you want me to try? What do you think of this build? Have you tried it before? Let me know what you think. Now, let's talk about this final tip for you. And again, this is super important, and it's specifically important for Arena. If you're using the hatchet and you find yourself in a situation where you use the Defy Death, and then you're still on cooldown for the Defy Death before the next round starts, that is the moment to try out new weapons and experiment with new weapons. Let's say use the hatchet, you win or lose the round, but your Defy Death is used, you've got 30 seconds left in the cooldown, just switch weapons, use the spear, use an ice gauntlet, use a greatsword, use a bow, a musket, whatever you want to try out. Just make sure that the attribute points are the same between your hatchet and the weapon you're trying. So if it's 30 dex on your hatchet, make sure your other weapon is also 30 dex too, so it doesn't affect your attribute points. If you want to get even better at this build, then check out these PvP clips here. I'm sure you're going to love them.